He learned I got name-checked by Terrance Howard on his recent appearance on Joe Rogan.
I reached out to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was like, hey man, yeah, I'd love for you to come on my show, do my radio, do my TV thing. Would love that. I was like, yeah, but I've got something I want to introduce to you.
I got name-checked because 8 years ago, he sent me a 36-page treatise.
And it was only 36 pages.
So this is Terrance Howard attempting to reinvent mathematics and physics. A little backstory there. I took initial interest in Terrance because my mother said to me, do you know Terrance Howard? I said, yeah, I know. You mean the actor? She said, yeah. Well, I heard him interviewed on NPR. On there, he said that like when he was a kid, he wanted to be like a scientist and study the universe. I said, well, that's cool. Okay, maybe we'll get him on Star Talk. We love talking to celebrities who have a soft geek underbelly. At the time, I didn't quite know how to get in touch with him, but we met at something called the Upfronts, which is where networks present their next season's TV shows.
I saw him at an event Upfront.
And then this came in my inbox. In this particular case, since I basically solicited it from him, I actually spent time reading every line of all 36 pages. And I commented. My comments are in red here. You see that? So I spent a lot of time on it. And I thought, out of respect for him, what I should do is give him my most informed critical analysis that I can. In my field, we call that a peer review. You come up with an idea, you present it either at a conference or you first write it up, and you send it to your colleagues. It is their duty to alert you of things about your ideas that are either misguided or wrong, or there's the calculation that doesn't work out, or the logic doesn't comport. That's their job. Not all ideas will turn out to be correct. Most won't be. But to get to that point, you need to know things like, what has everyone else said about this same subject? Am I repeating someone else's work? Is this a new insight that no one else has had, but has foundations that are authentic or legitimate or objectively true? Am I making a false assumption? Am I making an assumption that someone else has already shown to be false? All of this goes on the frontier of science. Let me make it clear that I'm delighted when I see people with active minds trying to tackle the great unknowns in the universe. It's a beautiful thing that people want to participate on this frontier. What can happen is, if you're a fan of a subject, let's say, a hobbyist, let's call it, it's possible to know enough about that subject to think you're right, but not enough about that subject to know that you're wrong. And so there's this sort of valley in there, a valley of false confidence. This has been studied by others, and it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's the phenomenon where a little bit of knowledge, you over-assess how much of that subject you actually know. And then when you learn even more, you realize, no, I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So then there's a sort of a lull there.
All right, Shalom, this is Gamali Allah, Great Millstone, Atlanta. I'm going to give all praises to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, Kakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to all the Akim that are pushing out this truth and sincerity. I don't quite have an exact title for this, but this is going to be dealing with Terrance Howard, debunking Terrance Howard, and also the effect of thinking you know something to that nature. But this guy Terrance Howard has been on the internet a lot lately, a topic on the internet a lot lately, because he's being praised for his intellect and different ideas. He got on the Joe Rogan podcast and spoke about a patent that he had that had drawn inspiration from you had Meta. He said Meta had drawn inspiration from his patent and all the virtual reality things. And then he goes into a lot of so-called deep science topics. And he even speaks about, 1 times 1 times 1 in multiplication is 2. It's not 1. Which, you know, and anybody that is anybody that's into mathematics knows that to be false. But, you know, he has a whole explanation behind it, and he talks about he talks about physics and different, you know, just goes deep. So this is an example of somebody. The reason I'm doing this is because this is an example of somebody that goes deep. Okay. And, you know, this also relates to the truth. Okay. Because you do have a lot of guys that try to go deep, man. You know, and we there's the acronym that brothers always use: keep it simple, stupid, KISS. All right. And, you know, this is just yet another example of how knowledge can be dangerous. And you had this guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson, which he's a scientist, and he also goes off to, you know, but he has debunked Terrance's claims, you know, a lot of Terrance's claims about, you know, whatever he was claiming to have discovered, or you know, his thoughts, because you have what's called a peer review, like he explained, which basically is a rebuttal to different ideas, different scientific ideas, you know, in the educational field. And so, and then he also spoke about the Dunning-Kruger effect, which essentially is thinking that you know something, you know, basically just thinking that you know something, like knowing enough about a subject to think that you're an expert. And that's basically, you know, but that's the dangers of knowledge. That right there is the dangers of, you know, what knowledge can do. And you gotta, you know, us in the truth, we have to check ourselves, because the scriptures tell us about knowledge. See, we have come into a great amount of knowledge with the scriptures, through the scriptures. You know, we know a hell of a lot more than the average person. All right. And so that knowledge, especially when you're young in the faith, okay, that it can get to your head, man. It can definitely get to your head. So I want to start with this, because it's pride. You know, all that whole knowledge that you've acquired, you know, it does give you a sense of pride, you know, as it should, you know. But there's a thing of, you know, you still have to remain, well, I'll say it shouldn't give you pride. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's pride, you know, but confidence. It should give you a level of confidence, you know, but it should make you humble. You should still remain humble, because where did you get your knowledge from? You got your knowledge from YAHAWASHI. You got to acknowledge who the knowledge is coming from. This is 1 Corinthians 8:1. Now, as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. Okay. So knowledge puffeth up. Puffeth up. You know, knowledge makes you proud, man. It goes to your head, as they say. All right, but you know, you can know a lot of things, and that's what the word science means. It means to know, and that's what this guy Neil deGrasse is. He calls himself I guess he's a scientist. I haven't really looked up who exactly he is, but this guy Neil deGrasse Tyson is a scientist, so he knows a lot of things. And Terrance Howard also knows a lot of things. You know, he's not an idiot, you know, but what he's going into, a lot of the subjects that he's going into, you know, he's wrong on a lot of things. And that's also the dangers of it, is because you can't even, you're so deep into a subject that you don't even know when you're wrong. Now, podcast this is, but this is also, they also go into how Terrance Howard, you know, debunking his theories and things of that nature. So I'll play this, if it'll play. My signal is kind of bad.
It's some really good stuff, former writers, but I read these books when I was in prison. So when I'm listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, I'm like, wow, I've read all this material. This is the discovery of nothing. This is all about the negative spaces he was talking about in his Joe Rogan podcast, where all the magic happens in the negative spaces. The primary philosophy behind this guy right here, Lyle Jacobson, is that there is nothing to fill without a previous empty, and that all the magic
And so all this guy is saying, I mean, he had gone into the books that Terrance Howard had gotten inspiration for, that essentially Terrance Howard is taking credit for. So, you know, he's getting it from somewhere, man. You know, he's getting his knowledge from somewhere. And that's not to mention that this guy is an actor, okay? This guy, Terrance Howard, is an actor. He's not a scientist, okay? So, and then he also says this, that he gets his inspiration from demons. So I'll go into this.
Garment that something else puts on. Now,
Right.
a lot of people sit up there and do impersonations of other folks, you know, instead of allowing that spirit, you know, but I sit up and I'll pray for a little bit and go in a dark place, go in the bathroom, turn off the lights, look in the mirror. We'll have the light on at first, and then after 1 minute, turn the light off, and, you know, and search until you see your own glow, your own aura. And then you watch it change.
Wow.
And it's a scary thing,
Yeah.
because you'll feel like some hands are on you,
Wow.
and you lose a little bit of control of what you're doing. But, you know, if you stay with it, you know, you'll be inhabited by something, and then you'll walk out.
man.
Wow. Who's
Hey.
allowing himself to be possessed, basically. He's asking for possession. I've heard
Okay.
I've heard of a lot of other actors, method actors, say this type of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Right,
I mean,
so I did a lesson with Taraji P. Henson a while back in regards to that same subject, because she was speaking on how a lot of acting roles where you'll channel evil spirits, you know, from those acting roles. You know, I did a lesson on that a while back. So that's true. This is things that go on within Hollywood. You know, these different actors that play these different roles, you know, they are influenced by, you know, demonic evil forces. Let me see.
is
Let me go
enough to
to.
show some type of character defect here. I'm not saying
Oh, I wanna
that he's
go
guilty
to-
of every.
Because he had a
Fight
quote.
is about that called AZ quotes. Here's something Terrance Howard said. Well, hold on. Every one of us is an artist, and as an artist, you really can stroll into any venue that you want, as long as you take your time to learn the etiquette of the venue. The reason this is important is because he's literally admitting here that
Infiltration.
if he really wanted to pretend to be a scientist, all he has to do is learn their vernacular, and he can pretend to be
Right.
a scientist.
So, you know, and that's the point. You know, that's all I'm gonna get on that. But proving the point that this guy Terrance Howard, he's basically acting like a so-called scientist. You know, he's going into deep subjects that, you know, is making him feel as though he's an expert. You know, he's a so-called expert in these different subjects, which he's not. You know, he's making a lot of, and like I said, I mean, he is an intelligent guy. You know, he does know something. Even those guys acknowledge that. But that's the dangers of knowledge, is because when you think you know a little something, you know, you can go off the deep end. This is Proverbs 14:12. It says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Yeah, because there's a way you can think you're right in your own eyes. You know, you can, you know, get carried away in your knowledge and get carried away in your beliefs, but it's not the way. Okay, you're being deceived. All right, and that's one of the ways that Satan works, is by deception. deception, using, he'll have you in a trick bag thinking that one way is the way or the path to God or the path to righteousness, but it's really not, and that's deception. Okay. Let me see what else I want to get. I'll get this Proverbs 4. I'll jump down to 15. It says, "The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going." Yeah, because you actually had a lot of people on the comment boards of Terrance's video like, yeah, oh man, this man's a genius. Protect him. He needs to be the next president. They were praising what he says. But here you have different experts in the field that he proposes to know. Terrance proposes to know, and they're straight up, debunking him. They're basically cutting whatever he's saying. So to the average person, he sounds smart. He sounds, oh my God, like this guy using deep words, and even he said in the quote that he uses vernacular. He can insert himself into any particular field, which you can do that. You can easily fake, to be an expert in something. All you got to do is, like he said, learn the etiquette, learn the vernacular and different things. You learn the different terms and different, and you'll sound like an expert to the average everyday person who doesn't really know anything on the subject. You'll sound like a complete expert, and that's the thing. He sounds deep to just the average person, but people who are well studied and educated, they know this guy's full of BS, man. But these people are. Oh, and there's another one. There's another scripture in Sirach that goes into they extol it to the clouds. This is Sirach 13:23. It says, "When a rich man speaketh, every man holdeth his tongue, and look what he saith, they extol it to the clouds." So yeah, when people hear someone who has money, say things, they'll put it in high regard. They'll listen to him. They'll look at it like, wow, man, this guy is really smart, or he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, because this guy has grant. He's what is he? What's the Actors Award? Emmys. This guy has. He may not have a. I don't believe he has a whole bunch of money. He may have blown it. I'll say this. He still got money. He has more money than the average person. His money is above average. I don't know how rich he is. They say actors really aren't making that much. But let's just say, he's rich. He's not on a level of the super rich elites, but let's just say, he's a millionaire. But people will extol it, and he has accolades. He has fame. So people believe, regardless of whether he has money or not, people believe him to have money, so they listen to him. And it says they extol it to the clouds, but if the poor man speak, they say, what fellow is this? And if he stumble, they will help to overthrow him. So yeah, the things we say, the things we go into, prophecy, scriptures, different subjects of that nature, they don't, listen. They're like, oh, who is this? What fellow is this? We ain't listening to that. They just basically, shun their hand at it. But, they wave their hand at it. But, like I said, this is just wanting to point out basically the dangers of knowledge, and how, that pride can make you feel like you know something, and you'll fool the average person. Okay, you'll fool anybody, just by using deep words and using these things. But and like I said, it does relate to the truth, because that's why one of the reasons why we keep it simple, because we don't need to be super experts you know, we don't need to go super deep and go above people's heads. You know, it's really best, honestly, to be able to simplify things in layman's terms, you know, and say things, you know, simply, rather than try to, you know, purport to be this, you know, very deep, eloquent person. So, you know, that's pretty much the point. I want to give all praise to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, and then giving all double honors to the great, to the elders of GMS. Shalom.